Hello, hello, and welcome to Journey to SEA 2024. I am your host, Shellyan Edwards Barron, and we are in episode, I think, what is this? Episode 14? Yeah? All right, just give me 1 second. I'm getting an echo. All right, so hopefully that will deal with it. Ah, yes, I think it did. All right. So, yes, as I was saying, welcome to Journey to SCA 2024. I'm not in my usual space. As you can see, the background is different, and we had a little bit of issues getting the live out. So, but we're here, and this is episode 14, I think it is. And we're dealing with report transitions and narrative characters today. And so I'm going to get into it quickly because this one is, there's some stuff that I really want to share with you. So this one is going to be a good one. I did the slides early, so we have slides for both reports and narratives. And for those of you who have been following the lives, thank you so much. Please send me your comments, send me your requests, your questions, so that I could ensure that I get all the information that you need into the lives as much as I can. If you're interested in doing classes separately, message me and we'll see how we can work something out. And for those of you who are new to the live and you're wondering who is this Miss Shellyan who calls herself a creative writing specialist. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself and then I'd get into the session for today. So, I call myself a creative writing specialist because I work with writers at varying levels and I look at creative writing from multiple perspectives. So, I work with primary school students who are preparing for SCA and we look at writing from the perspective of the sender and receiver. So, sender would be the writer, the receiver would be the person reading. I also use what is called multisensory learning so that my class sessions are inclusive in the sense that I work with students who may have some challenges really grasping the creative writing and the interaction that we have. I guide them through step by step processes that they would be able to create strategies and implement those strategies because many students who struggle, all they need is a system and a strategy to really help them get through what they're doing. I also work with authors. I'm an editor, a writing coach, author coach, helping authors complete their manuscripts and get published. I work with academic writers who are working on their master's thesis in particular. And helping them, get the words right to really master academic writing. That's a whole other consideration from SE and working with authors. So that's the reason I consider myself a specialist because I work with the author, I work with the child, I work with the student, and not just working on the writing per se. Because what I believe and what I've seen is that in order to write well, you need to have ideas, you need to have your ideas clear in your own mind, and that's where the position that I start with. So this is the person who is sharing with you now. That's me. That's who I am. I mean, there's a lot more that I could share, but I know what you're really here for is understanding report transitions and getting a handle on characters, character development for the writing of narratives. So let's get into that. And like I said, I'm proud of myself. I have slides today. So, all right, there we go. Now, with the transitions, let's see. So, report writing is all about, putting the information together into paragraphs. And like I said, I work with the 5 paragraph report. And in order for the information to flow well and for the report to be considered an exemplary report, that is the 19 to 20. And that's 19 to 20, 18 to 20. That's where we get exemplary. If you want to get to that level with reports, then transition words and phrases are absolutely important to include. So let's get into now what is, well, this is our agenda for this section. Um, all right, let me make this bigger so that I could see everything. Okay, lovely. Right. So this is what we're working on with the transition. So I'm going to give you a definition. We'll talk a little bit about what the purpose of transitions are, the types of transitions, some examples of transitions in reports, and then I'll give you some ideas on how you can engage with students to really get them to understand and appreciate transitions. Um, and then after that, we'll do the agenda for the report writing, for the narrative writing, and then get into the characters as well. Thank you for those of you who are here live. I know this was a kind of sudden thing, that the timing wasn't all right. I appreciate you checking in. And for those of you who are looking at the recording, again, thank you for taking your time. And I do encourage you, reach out to me, ask your questions, check in so that I know what I'm sharing is what you need. I mean, I can share lots of general information, but I want to be as specific as possible to answer the questions that you have. And if learning more about teaching creative writing using the strategies and worksheets and structure that I have created, if that is something that you're interested in, I am actually doing some professional development workshops later this month. The first one would be next week, Friday, which is the 21st, and then we have one on the 28th, and then on the 4th of August. If you're interested in that, I'll give you a little bit more detail about that at the end. And certainly, you can message me to get more details about how you can learn to teach creative writing using multisensory learning. And I also do have a few tools like books and worksheets and so on that you can access in order to do that well. So the lives are really meant to give you the information so that you can understand what to teach and a little bit about how to do it. And then, if you want materials that you could use to follow on with the lives or to supplement the lives, let me know what you need. If I don't already have it done, I will create it for you. My agenda is really all about sharing the information so that you can engage with your students a lot better, and therefore, everyone would learn writing and learn how to write well. Okay. And of course, if you're working with your child in this situation, your child is your student. Yeah, we do need to have that little separation, even though it doesn't quite work the same way with your child. But it'll be fun. You'll be having fun learning, and everybody would, benefit in the end. All right. So let's actually get to the next slide, which is the definition of transitions. So I'm going to read it through just to make sure everybody is understanding and following, and then I'm going to discuss what's happening, more details with the slide itself. So, a transition word is a word that is used to connect one idea with another, showing the relationship the ideas have with each other. So, it's all about really connecting ideas. And so, different transition words would create different connections. Right. So we can also use a group of words to do that, not just a single word. And when we use a group of words, those are called transition phrases. So a single word is a transition word, and then when you have a few words together, that would be a transition phrase. Now, in reports, transitions help readers make sense of what they're reading by connecting time and space, usually. Because remember, a report is all about presenting the information on a situation in chronological order, which is time order. And time order means that you are saying what happened first, what happened next, and so on. And in doing that, you'd have to give locations of where people are, where things are, and that would help readers really understand what's going on in the report. So that's why we're looking at time and space, right? Now, the purpose of a transition, now we're connecting ideas, right? But when you connect ideas effectively, what happens is that the information is organized and readers are able to access that information much more easily. And when that happens, they're able to follow the meaning and the intent of what you're trying to share. And then when we do all of that, the writing will make sense. And remember, with reports, it's all about that chronological order, giving enough information that's relevant and so on, so that the writing can make sense and readers can get the most out of what is shared. So the different types of transitions, there are quite a few. These are not even all of them, but these are just to show you how many different types of transitions there are. But the thing is, not all of them are suitable for reports. So we have addition, concession, consequence, contrast, emphasis, examples, illustrations, similarity, space, summary, suggestion, and time order. Now, based on this, as you can imagine, concession, emphasis, contrast, consequence, those ones are not really important to reports because they can lead you into the what is it, the opinionated speech, and we get a very um kind of personalized, because now the writer is giving opinion. So you really do want to be careful with those. The ones that work the best would be in addition, so you can say, this also happened, space, where things are, time order. um those are really the three that are the best for report writing. And when we focus on those, we really want to just help readers understand what happened in the situation, where these things happened, and the order in which they happened. That is our main focus for reports. So transition reports are limited and do not include all the different types. We focus on establishing time order, we focus on giving location, and we can also use them to add information. Right, so let's take a look at a couple of sentences, well, three sentences, um well, three bits of information. And this is what can happen. Sometimes students give information, but they give them in fairly short sentences, and maybe the sentences begin with the same um structure and everything. So while these sentences are not all the same length, if you look at the structure of the sentences, what you would see is that the sentences are pretty much structured the same way: subject, verb, object, subject, verb, predicate. And when you do that, what you get is a kind of I guess, simplistic approach to presenting information. And for report writers in SEA, what you want is to establish that formal tone and show a bit more sophistication in the sentence structure and sentence presentation, information presentation style, so that these um, sentences that begin and are structured the same way really reduce the formal tone, because the writing looks a little bit chunky, and as if the student doesn't have um an exemplary command of the English language. So transitions really go toward creating that formal tone and helping your readers get that, I guess we could call it, sophisticated style of writing. It's really more of an academic style, and writers need to show that they understand how to present factual information in a flowing kind of way so readers can access it. So David pushed Richard. David kicked Richard approximately 4 times about his body. Mrs. Lushman took the students to the principal's office. Mrs. Lushman called the students' parents. The teacher appointed the class prefect to supervise the activity. The teacher left the classroom. So this is just like giving, straight up, this is what happened. We put each action also in a separate sentence, and the information is there, but it's not presented in a fluid, sort of deliberate kind of way to show the examiner that this student understands and knows how to write effectively. Because remember, this is an exam, and examiners are looking for specific things. It's not all about content, it's really about how you present that content. So let's see a couple examples of how these sentences could be connected. So the first one, David pushed Richard to the floor before kicking him approximately 4 times about his body. Now, immediately you feel a difference with the way these sentences are presented. And now the information is given in a more fluid way, and you'd realize that what is happening is that we have one sentence as opposed to two, because now we're using the transition word to connect the ideas within the sentence. Now, you would also need to pay attention to transition words and phrases that begin paragraphs so that you can have those connections. But these are examples of how they can be within a sentence. Now, the last one could be the beginning of a new paragraph, and it shows how you can use the sentence, the transition word and phrase to blend and, smoothen the jarring nature of just dropping information at people. So here's the thing with, so let me just read them about. Mrs. Lutchman escorted the students to the principal's office, then contacted their parents. Before leaving the classroom, Mrs. Diggerville appointed the class prefect to supervise the activity. Now you'd notice that there's a change. I'm going to go back. In the last one, we had the teacher, and in the um, change, we included a name. Now, names are a good way to really engage readers, and they're very specific about who is doing what. Of course, however, we could have simply said, before leaving the classroom, the teacher appointed the class prefect to supervise the activity. But when I was going through it, I felt that, the classroom, the class prefect, the activity, the teacher, it felt like the structure was a bit repeated, and so putting in the name there eases that within the sentence as well. So it's really about making the sentence sound. I like to use the word sophisticated, but it's really about advanced sentence structure and advanced presentation information. All right. Um, Let's see. So a few more examples, so that you could see these would be the ones that you would kind of have at the beginning of a paragraph. Of course, they can go anywhere within a paragraph because all they are really about are, blending ideas. But these are examples that can work really nicely at the beginning of paragraphs as well. So, according to the guide, the museum was built in 1875. This one is an example of adding information. When the students arrived at their destination, they were told to prepare for the presentation to begin. This is an example of time. At the end of the tour, the guide questioned participants about what they learned and rewarded accurate responses with tokens from the gift shop. So we have at the end of the tour as a transition phrase, and then we have the word and being used as a conjunction to join the ideas, add additional ideas. Then we have an example of location. At the front of the line, Mrs. Henry clapped her hands. So that's location. Inside the classroom, 3 students were playing with toy cars. Now, we can also say 3 students were playing with toy cars inside the classroom. So we can have it both ways, at the beginning or at the end. But as a transition phrase, as an introductory phrase, we can use these, and they really add to the um, the level of sophistication. And yes, you're going to hear that word used over and over. I have to figure out another way to say that, but yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But you get the point, right? Five standard, three students were apprehended writing on the wall behind the boys' toilet. So again, we're going with location. So behind, we want specific words that give location. This is not technically the example of a transition. However, we're using specific words to identify location. So the other two are more transition in nature in terms of how the phrases are used. The last one is really just an example to show you that you can put location in a sentence and how the sentence flows with that specific detail of location in it. All right. Now, how do you engage students with this, and how do you get them to really understand the benefits of transitions, how to use the transitions, what the various transitions mean? Then there are a couple of things that you would need to do. So the first thing is that we have to teach the transitions. So give examples, explain what they mean, how they work in a sentence. Then we discuss why transitions would and should be used in the different ways in report writing. Then we want to ask students to go back to something that they've written before. So maybe they've practiced a report before. You want them to go back to that and really get into have them look for places where they may have been able to use transitions more effectively if they didn't have a transition, or if they had one and you want them to use different ones. Because um, in my assessment, transition words are useful, but transition phrases really elevate the writing. So students can use then and afterward and so on, but you want them to use, use more phrases. So instead of saying afterward, maybe say something like after the lecture ended or when the lecture ended. So we get a phrase, and that phrase spreads the connection. So as you can imagine, think about it like a step. So you can actually think of it like a step, the transitions, the steps connecting one idea to another. So if you have a wide area and you use one step and you have this long, deep step, it's going to be a little abrupt for readers to come and then drop. But if you use that's a single word, which is a transition word. However, if you use more than one word, so then you get a transition phrase. Let's say, instead of afterward, we get when the lecture ended. We have four words instead. This depth becomes four steps. And then readers are able to gradually go down instead of having to jump off the height. So that is why I recommend the use of transition phrases more than transition words. And that is something that I think you can really look into. And the transition phrases generally begin with the time words and location words. So inside, outside, behind, etc. for the location, and then for time, when, before, after, during, those kinds of words would really, and then you add the rest of it. So before what, after what, during what, and that would help you with a transition phrase. Inside, behind, those kinds of words. We want inside, where, behind, where, behind what, and that would help you create a transition phrase. And like I said, the transition word would give you a jump, the transition phrase would give you more steps, and therefore be more of a smoother connection between the ideas. So I hope that helps in terms of understanding transition words and phrases, why I personally recommend transition phrases, and how students can use those. Now, of course, in my textbook, I have an entire chapter on transitions with more examples, recommendations. There's a wonderful activity that you can try. Remember, multisensory learning. We're all about making learning about writing fun. There's an activity you can try to well, not try, do. I mean, it's very, very simple. They're all really child friendly, simple activities that you can use to introduce the concept of transitions. And then there's the workbook for practice and the journal for continued practice. So definitely, if transitions is an area that you need more support with, you can check that out and work with helping your students really understand transitions. All right, so that's the end of the section on the reports with the transitions, and now we're getting into dealing with the narratives, which we're looking at characters and stories, describing characters physically, describing actions, couple examples. When I say a couple, I think I have like about 5 examples, and a few tips for character description. Now I'm reading it. I wonder if I finished the tips, but I think so. If I didn't finish the slide, I'll share the information with you anyway. All right, so let's get into it. Um, Characters and stories. Now, a character, a person, animal, any figure in a story that has a role to play in the story. And there are different types of characters. So you have the main character who the story is about, and that's the person that moves the plot forward. So when they react and when they do things, that's really when the story is moving forward. Um, Characters really are meant to interact with each other and with the setting. That is what makes stories exciting and vibrant. Other characters would be like secondary characters. You have, like a best friend or a sidekick. Or you have what sometimes are called like extras, where they're just background characters. They may have dialogue, they may have some interaction with the main character, but the story isn't about them, and they're really just meant to show that the characters are in a space that is full and not just the two of them. We really add those characters so readers can sort of flesh out. So if you're at a school, it's not going to be just a teacher and the one student in the classroom. There would be classmates, there would be other classes, other classrooms, and so on. So that's why we have the different levels of characters, because not all of them need to be described. You would choose the ones you need to describe and have interact, but you do need often to have more than one. Now, not all stories would have a whole lot of characters, and I do recommend to students that the characters that are actually involved in the main part of the story, you really want to have just about one main character and maybe a couple others who are directly involved in this situation. When I say a couple in that situation, I mean two. You can maybe go to three, because that would create maybe a more interactive style story. But then remember, with a narrative for SEA, you're balancing narration and description. So you have to keep in mind how much descriptions you can add and how many points of narration, because you do need to get that balance for both. All right. Let's see. Uh Moving forward from that, when we're describing characters physically, now these are the main things, these aren't the only things. And of course, if you want more information on this in terms of like teaching the narratives and how to get this character descriptions done, I'm doing professional development classes, as I said, so you can engage with that. Let me know. but I'm giving like the basics here so that you would know what you can work with. But of course, getting into the details of it, we can do that in a different context. Now, hair, body, and clothing, those are the main things that we notice about characters. Of course, that's just physically. Remember, we can also describe a character's personality. The thing with personality is that that is normally understood through actions and behavior. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the next slide. For now, let's look at the physical description. So we talk about hair length, color, style, texture. We talk about body in terms of size, features, blemishes. We talk about clothing, and clothing, of course, would be t-shirts, pants, skirts, dresses. We talk about accessories here too under clothing, jewelry, handbags, shoes, those types of things, right? Would come under there. I didn't put anything about faces, but you can certainly talk about face. Face is a whole consideration by itself because you have expressions, you have teeth and eyes and so on. Which reminds me, let me say this now before we go on. Many of our students, especially those who are darker in complexion and have black and brown eyes, tend to describe themselves and their characters as having blue and green eyes and, straight hair and sometimes blonde hair and so on. I really want to encourage you to have your students describe themselves as accurately as possible, not just because the examiners would look at them and say, hey, but I think representing ourselves and writing about people that look like us is very important. So, I'd like to advocate for, the braids and the twists and the kinky hair and the brown complexion and the tans and the chocolate and the toffee and the cream, and we really do want to have those kinds of descriptions, whether hair is straight or not. But think about the type of hair that the character has, especially if it's a realistic style story. Now, of course, if you're writing fantasy, hair could be blue and pink and whatever color. I mean, it could be in real life as well, but in a school setting, it's unlikely to have a student with pink hair. So we want to pay attention to those kinds of things. um so we want to really give students an opportunity to describe it, have them practice, because a lot of what we read and see on television, people don't look like us. So we tend to gravitate to those descriptions that we're familiar with. So a child may have to like do a study, start thinking about, words and phrases that they can use, keep a journal, keep a database of sorts, document expressions that are useful so that they can practice and incorporate in their writing. So, all right, so that's just me off my soapbox. I had to say that before we continued. All right. Now describing actions. Movement is a great way to add excitement to a story, and we want to think about how characters move and what that says about them. Are they slow? Are they fast? Are they deliberate? Are they careless? Are they energetic? And readers make judgments about characters' personalities by how they move and what they say. Now, character description, according to the rubric, deals with actions, which is their behavior, deals with the physical descriptions, and dialogue. I'm not getting into dialogue in this session because we have an entire couple of sessions, or I think 3 sessions, discussing dialogue alone. But just note that you do need all three, right? You really do need all three to get a complete character description according to the SEA rubric. And what a character who is slow and taking their time could be considered as lazy or tired or frustrated. Somebody who's careless might be considered, well, careless. You what would that look like? Maybe they're forgetting things, maybe they're dragging things, dropping things, breaking things. Um, are they energetic? That could show excitement and the interest in what they're doing. So actions really make a difference. And you want to describe the action, not just say that, okay, the student walked to the classroom. How did they walk? Did they skip? Did they drag their feet? So kind of describe what it looks like, right? And describe what it sounds like. Those are the ways to really get into the details of the character description. Now, let's look at a couple examples. So I took two examples from published materials, and then I'm going to show you three examples from my students from previous classes. A giant of a man was standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes glinting like black beetles under all the hair. Taken from Harry Potter, one of those books. So you're looking at the way the man is described and how it's integrated into the expressions. And we have similes in there. We have some exaggeration. Although I think this was a description of Hagrid, so there wasn't actually a full exaggeration happening here. Then we have this one. Madame Zeroni had dark skin and a very wide mouth. When she looked at you, her eyes seemed to expand, and you felt like she was looking right through you. So here we have some action. So we have a description, but then we have also how that can make the characters feel. And this is one way that you can integrate the descriptions, right? Have characters react to the descriptions, have them show emotions when the descriptions are given. So we're not just giving descriptions just to know what people look like, but we want to know what that means to the story. Why is this important to the story? That is something to consider. And here are some examples from my students. Um, so why is that full stop not after the word? All right. The old lady removed her mask, revealing her yellow, uneven teeth and wrinkled, freckled face. Another one, the deep, husky voice came from my toy trunk in the corner of my bedroom. Another one, Miss Barbara, her shoulders hunched, was taking a slow stroll on the sidewalk when she heard a faint meowing through her hearing aid. Now, you get awesome information. I particularly like that last one because we have hunched shoulders, we have slow stroll, and then we have the hearing aid. So that paints a really awesome picture about who that character is. And we get it through action, we get it through what we see, and then we get that little extra detail about the hearing aid. So we kind of get the impression that Miss Barbara is an elderly person. And the mere fact that she's referred to as Miss Barbara as well kind of adds to that whole thing. So we have these descriptions, and notice that there's some action, and then there's the location. We have one talking about voice, we have one talking about face. And so characters are not just, we're not just told about the character's description, we're shown what the character looks like as they interact um with their environment and as they interact with other characters. So this is what you want to work with. So yes, I did finish. So there are 5 tips for character description that I'd like you to consider. Number one is don't put all the character description in one place. We want it spread throughout the story. We want readers to learn about characters as the story unfolds, and we learn more as we interact with the characters more as the story continues. And then we need to have action, physical description, and personality. Now, remember when I said about the actions. Personality is the result of, we can put actions and physical descriptions to help with personality. So, what a character is wearing. So, let's say the character is wearing something that's stained and ripped. Maybe that could say something about them. Is it very neatly pressed and, everything is as it should be? All of these things help to expand and develop a reader's understanding of a character. And of course, characters have to be active, they need to do things. Dialogue is part of character description, so please remember that because we can learn a lot about characters based on what a character can say. And then we want to include imagery and figurative language in description. And we want to use actions and interactions to also introduce descriptions. So these are some strategies that you can practice. And of course, if you want to work with, find out more about how to teach that, or you want your child to engage in a class where we talk about that and have fun doing it, then you can enroll them in my creative writing classes. Classes are starting next week. So if you haven't already enrolled in a class and you have the time, 1 o'clock is when we're doing the narrative writing, and that would be 1 to 3, so 2 hours, Monday to Thursday. And that one is for students who are going into standard 4, or they're already in standard 4 from now. I know some schools bring it up. So September, the student is in standard 4. If the student will be in standard 5 in September, this is a student for this class who may not have all the basics done. The student is still a little bit struggling. That's the 1 o'clock class. Um, the 4 p.m. class, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Thursday, I'm focusing on report writing, and we get into all the details about reports. If your child is familiar with the classes, with the narratives, and they are already into foundation, they understand plot and all those things, but they need a little bit of help with a few strategies, then I have a 6:30 to 8 o'clock class. That class is an hour and a half, and we cover certain topics. So I'll put the links in the chat. The 6:30 class, though, that's an ongoing class for students who I've already been working with. So if you want to join that class, you need to message me 717-4993. Please send a WhatsApp message or message me on Facebook to find out about that. So if you have any questions whatsoever about anything I said today, you can be sure to message me, let me know. I'll answer the questions as best as I can. But like I said, if you really, really want to get into the details, consider enrolling in the How to Teach Narrative Writing, which is on the 28th, or How to Teach Report Writing with Multisensory Learning, of course. You get materials, you get worksheets, and I am of the opinion that the more people who teach like this, the better. So I'll pretty much be cramming as much as I can into the 3 hour session. And then the good news is that if you take any two of those three courses, because I'm doing one on feedback as well, if you take any two of those courses, you are eligible to join a community that I'm starting, and it is teaching creative writing the multisensory way. So if you do those courses, you join and you have lifetime membership, you would be a founding member. Between now and December, that's what I'm offering. From January, anybody else to join, there would be a small subscription fee. And I say small is just so that I could maintain and pay for the programs and the software and stuff that I'd be needing to manage it effectively. Yeah, there'd be a small membership fee, but this group would be where I would have the discussions and you'd have access to me. I'd be doing specific lives in that group only for teachers who might be interested in doing more with their writing and teaching writing. So that is it for the presentation today. I might have gone a little bit quickly, but the recording is there so you can go back and check anything. If you think you missed anything, message me. and we can have that conversation. All right. So thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day today. Next week, we would be on Tuesday on time. We had a few, setbacks this week, but we're still good. You have the information now. Okay. All right. So take care and happy writing, happy teaching. Bye, everybody. Okay. Just as I'm ready to end lots of pop ups, right? But yeah, so bye this time.